guys. So on a lot of my posts, a lot of people are engaging me in a very positive way, and I appreciate that. But there are still some African Americans who are jumping on my threads, posting clown emojis and raccoon emojis and whatever. That doesn't bother me at all. I don't know why you think that bothers me. Do you know what I do for a living? You know I've stared death in the face multiple times. Do you know how many horrible things that I've seen in 28 years? You know how many times I get called everything but a child of God, and you think a little emoji is gonna whip me back to the plantation, right? Get my head right. I'm gonna give you guys some slack today. Stop with the emojis, and with your intelligence, your reason, and rationale from a non-emotional place, can you just explain to me why I'm wrong? Because not one person out there has been able to explain to me why I'm wrong in my stances.
Well, that is Officer Deon Joseph, and he is an interesting guy with a large following on X, formerly Twitter. He's got a webpage, and while he is a member of a police force in Southern California, he does not represent them when he makes these statements. He is speaking for himself. But a man of that stature, both literal and figurative, and of that just total conviction to what he believes, posts regularly to followers, black and white, who many applaud him and cheer him on, and others say, as he just mentioned there, hey man, get back on the plantation. His words, not mine. And yet he sticks to his guns, and he doesn't do it because he's a go Trump MAGA guy. He does it because he really believes, he understands that 4 more years of the Biden-Harris agenda would really, really, really damage the country. And on that, he and I agree. I can't wait for you to meet him. He is such an interesting guy with a tremendous background, and is, again, putting himself out there because of what he thinks is best for the greater society. We're going to meet Officer Deon Joseph next.
Welcome to the Michele Tafoya podcast.
He is Officer Deon Joseph, and there is so much we could talk about between the police shootings that we're seeing. I'm talking about where the police officers are targets, to California, to the United States of America, to reparations. I started following you on X, and I feel like a day trader on X. I look for these accounts that are really interesting to me, and I've been following you for a while now, and you are really interesting.
Thank you.
You've been in police work for how long now?
28 years. 28 years. It'll be 29 years in December, and 26 of those years working in Skid Row. I consider that my second home, but it's a tough place to work.
I would imagine. What's the toughest thing about that beat?
There are many things, just seeing the systemic failures that they try to blame police for, but the real police forces aren't the systemic failure. The system has failed us as well when they make us a tip of the spear in solving problems they could have solved decades ago. So the hardest thing for me to see are people struggling with mental illness who are left to their own vices, ambling through the streets, patient dumping, also seeing addicts who are unable to break the cycle of addiction because of a hands-off policy that's pretty much taking over many blue cities, that is giving the criminal element such a strong grip on the community that these folks can never really get their lives back without law enforcement intervention. And then to make things worse, they've actually really made law enforcement, for lack of a better term, impotent in being a part of changing people's lives through enforcement, which is the key. I don't believe enforcement is the answer, but I believe it's a part of a multifaceted answer to helping people get their lives back. I witnessed it from 2005 to 2011. Why we got away from it, I don't know. But there's so many tragedy. Women, I think that's the saddest part to me. The women make up 40% of the Skid Row population, but 2/3 of them have been victims of sexual assault twice. So I get upset when I hear all these politicians, particularly on the left side. I try to be apolitical, but I got to be honest. Most of the problems we're dealing with come from the left, who say, oh, we care about women, but you don't want to change the conditions that put women in danger. So these are the things that I see daily that really blow my mind. I wish the public would understand.
Yeah, maybe the public needs to have it thrown in front of their face more. I don't know. When you said patient dumping, what did you mean by that?
Well, all over the state and even the county, what happens is Skid Row has always been the dumping ground for all of LA County's problems and beyond. So what happens is when another city wants to get rid of a homeless problem, they'll have either a hospital or even unfortunately law enforcement agencies come by and drop homeless people from their communities into Skid Row. And that's very dangerous for them because for new faces in Skid Row, they don't know the Skid Row rules that the criminal element has. So oftentimes they're victims of horrific assaults, horrific violent attacks. The worst part is when hospitals do it, where they take a patient that is not fully recovered, but say, hey, we can't hold you here any longer. So we're just going to drop you off at a shelter downtown. And shelters are mostly not equipped to help people with severe medical conditions. Worst case I ever saw was a man who sadly was dying from full-blown AIDS. He was about 90 pounds, and they just pulled him out of a wheelchair and just left him in front of a shelter. And the shelter called me and says, Joseph, we got another one. So these are horrible things that we're seeing and that we try to curb as best as we can. But unfortunately, the system is too broken, and there's not enough of us to do it.
Well, you hinted toward, that you want to stay apolitical, but you can't, to a certain degree, say that you're completely down the middle because you're seeing which policies work and which policies don't. And a lot of what you post on X these days is about the forthcoming election, about how you looked at past elections, specifically 2016. You didn't vote in 2016, is that right?
Correct. I didn't vote for either Hillary or President Trump, former President Trump. I thought Hillary was and forgive me, I try not to be mean, but I did think she was a snake and disingenuous, and I'm sorry, I just couldn't pull the trigger for her. Right. And then for Donald Trump, I, like a lot of people, thought that this was a game for him. He just wanted to be a celebrity who wanted to be president. So I was like, nah, I don't have time for games. So I basically gave my vote to a third party. And then 2020 comes along, and I thought, even though I thought Trump did a okay job, he did a good job. I hated the circus that he brought. We got to admit that sometimes Donald Trump brings a circus with him. Mm-hmm. But if you're honest, if you have any integrity, you have to admit that America was doing very, very well. But I, like many, was tired of the circus. So Joe Biden appeared to me, based on the past, to be a moderate. See, I'm a Democrat. Like I said, I'm a Democrat who is, I call myself a disgruntled Democrat. I don't recognize the party I used to belong to.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of you out there.
Yeah.
A lot of disgruntles.
So I thought Biden was going to be the choice. And then I saw him using the same playbook we're seeing today to exploit the black community, making promises, saying, if you don't vote for me, you aren't black. The same old things. Yeah. And that upset me. And I said, no, I can't do that. So I said, okay, I'm going to hold my nose and vote for Trump, because even though I don't like the circus, I do like what he brought. And this time around, there's no reservations in my heart. It's either Trump or fascism. And that's just where we are in my heart. I never thought that we would, as the United States of America, completely weaponize the justice system against anyone, silence people on social media. And that's what they did. And I don't want to be the UK right now. We know what's happening in the UK with people being jailed, Canada and France.
Brazil now is joining Brazil's joining the act. Yeah. In terms of quieting people, that's pretty terrifying. And I think that's what you're referencing when you say fascism, that we're looking at a party here on the Democrat side with the Harris Walls campaign. And I happen to live in Minnesota. I'm originally from California, but I live in Minnesota now. I know all about Tim Walz, and he is no aw shucks nice guy. This is a very leftist leaning, Marxist shaped man. And they're trying to sort of hide behind their immutable characteristics. Oh, he's the nice old white guy with thinning gray hair who used to coach football. And she's a woman of color who's, been in law enforcement. You've seen firsthand, because she was in California. So what I'll use her word, what her values are. So what can you tell people about her values that makes you not want to vote that way?
Well, I can tell you that being in law enforcement doesn't necessarily make you a good law enforcement person at all. Our job, our primary function, in my opinion, based on how is to keep people safe and do everything we can to protect victims and create environments conducive to change, so that the positive members of the community, the positive groups, can have a stronger impact on the community than the criminal element. What Kamala Harris has done and signaled and actually engaged in is the complete and total opposite of that. With her support of Prop 47 and titling it the Safe Neighborhoods and School Act. For those of you guys who don't know, Prop 47 was an initiative that was brought forth in 2014 that turned serious felonies into misdemeanors, right? Which pulled a lever that released thousands of criminals into the street and made it difficult for us to put repeat and chronic offenders of crime back in jail. So basically it erased 13 years of crime reduction and primarily affecting property crimes, but also violent crimes, because as my father once said, if you allow a person to steal, they'll eventually kill. And that's what we started seeing, all crime going up in all facets. And she is the one who supported that. She also supported no cash bail, which, to my surprise, California voters rejected. They said, we don't want that. Look, we are left, but we aren't crazy. No, we need bail because we got to protect people. But Kamala Harris was no cash bail. And she was also part of the defund the police movement. And
Yes,
there's no doubt
was.
about that.
No, there is not.
She supported a bail fund that basically helped terrorists, domestic terrorists, and that's what they are. There's no doubt about it. Get out of jail and continue, and encourage them to continue. That is reckless, that is irresponsible, that is not pro-safety, that is not pro-community, and there's no way in heck I could vote for a person like that. There's no way in hell.
I don't always sleep the best, and especially lately after my shoulder surgery, I have a tough time sleeping, but something I found is really helping, and I am amazed. Sleep Cream, SleepCreme. Okay, so you're wondering what the heck is Sleep Cream and how can a cream help you sleep? Sleep Cream is a revolutionary new product made of all natural ingredients and with pure CBD crystals. Yeah, Mom, I said it. And yes, you simply rub it on sensitive skin areas right at bedtime. I put it on my feet. You can also put it on your forearms. You'll feel relaxed. Seriously, it happens in a matter of minutes for me, and you get the best sleep you've had in years. I certainly have had it help me immensely. It helps me relax and fall asleep. And best of all, it's guaranteed to work or your money back, and that's no questions asked. Again, I know what you're thinking. How can a cream help me sleep better? And again, I am telling you, if you want an all-natural way to sleep better, you really got to try Sleep Cream. And maybe you've heard all kinds of mixed messages about CBD, but let me tell you, Sleep Cream uses only pharmaceutical-grade pure CBD crystals with 0 THC, and it's made right here in the USA. Sounds too good to be true? Well, try it for yourself, and with its 100% money-back guarantee, you have nothing to lose except more sleepless nights. So go to sleepcreme.com, and that's sleep, CREME.com, sleep, CREME.com. Use code November24, all one word, at checkout to save $24 on your first order. Are you ready for your best sleep ever? Sleepcreme.com. That's SleepCreme.com. I love it.
So I had this washed up radio DJ hit me up on social media talking about, oh, you're not a brother no more because how you plan on voting in 2024. Let me tell you something, you washed up ninja. If all it takes is politics for you not to see me as your brother, then we were never brothers in the first place. All right? I want to make that very clear. I also want to make something else clear. The reason why I'm voting the way I'm voting, from the top all the way down ballot, is because I do love my people with all of my heart. I love black people, and I'm sick and tired of, for 60 years, us being manipulated, gassed up, spun up, scared up, false promises made to us, and people having to dance around question and never ever having to be accountable to us. And that's all it takes for us to keep voting for them, and we get nothing out of it. That's why, because I love you so much, I'm tired of these politicians who dance in front of you and they don't respect you enough to even answer questions about how they're going to fix this economy, about how they're going to secure the border so your voice is not taken away, so your vote is not taken away, how they're going to fix the border so your children don't have to compete 10 times as hard with 10 million new people that they brought across the border on purpose. that's why I'm voting the way I'm voting.
All right, Deon, I want to look at one of your tweets in particular, and we'll put it up for people to see because it's the artwork in it is pretty good. What you say is, if this is where you are willing to remain, no shade, I still love y'all, but don't try to convince me. I can't join you. I need tangibles. I need to hear policy and a viable plan. I need to hear that you will put Americans first. And you've got Kamala with basically a salad, meaning a word salad, I guess. And then you've got Hillary with her hot sauce bottle, which was her little identity politics nod. And then you've got Joe Biden saying, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black.
Yeah.
I love this post. What kind of responses do you get from black men and women that you hear?
It's interesting. In 2020, when I was kind of telling people to wake up, Black Twitter, Black Facebook, everybody came for me. Friends, family. Are you crazy, Deon? You're this hero. You're this and that. We all look up to you. Why are you doing this? And I noticed over 4 years, that is tamped down quite a bit. I'm still getting a few people calling me a coon and Uncle Tom and all these ad hominem attacks to try to whip me back into the blue fold. But it's fewer and fewer than it ever has been before, because I always tell people social media is not always the real world. Social media is where people can be big and bad and beat their chest and talk about people behind the safety of their laptops. And I'm noticing even those ad hominem attacks are going down. But when I talk to real people in my circles, they tell me all the time, Deon, you're right. I can't say it because I don't want to get canceled or not invited to the cookout. But man, everything you're saying is 100%. So I'm talking to more African Americans and Hispanics in my community who are actually saying, yeah, I'm not going to say it out loud like you. You're brave. But no, I 100% agree with you. So that's what I'm noticing. I'm noticing more support than hate than as opposed to 2020 and 2016. So no, it's been a pretty good, healthy balance.
One of the things you talk about is in some of your posts is that if Trump were to come back and win this election, it would be one of the greatest comebacks in American history. What do you mean by that?
Really, if you have to look at what the man has been through, and I'm going to admit to everybody, I'm not a Trump fan. I don't have a MAGA hat. I don't have a MAGA flag. I have to tell people this because, we're just in this weird space where if you say anything positive about one person, you are completely left or right. It's crazy. Yeah. But to make a long story short, what I mean by that, look at what the man has been through. We're talking about a man who, since 2015, was once loved by the entire country for who he was, for everything we knew about him. We know about him now. Everybody loved him. He was on The View. He was getting hugs and kisses. Then he announces he's running against Hillary, and all of a sudden he's Satan incarnate. And this has been going on since 2015. Slander, lies, hoaxes, impeachments, the weaponization of the justice system. That's why I don't call Trump a convicted felon like many people do. I call him a manufactured felon. You got old Alvin Bragg who took an obscure misdemeanor and bumped it up to 34 felonies when he takes real violent criminals and bumps them down to misdemeanors to get them out of jail. That's insane. That is selective enforcement. That is an imbalance, and it's a clear weaponization. The fleecing of his finances through civil suits, knocking him off the campaign trail, taking him off the ballots. That's fascism, taking him off the ballots and taking away a choice for people to vote. And now, because of the hatred and rhetoric that not only politicians, podcasters, celebrities have been using, those hateful seeds planted in the heart of a very deranged young man, and they actually tried to kill him. Not directly, but through their rhetoric, it set in his heart, young man's heart. So this man's been through everything. And if he can win, and even changing the rules of the election so they can beat him. If he can win, this will be, like him or hate him, one of the greatest comebacks in American history. And me personally, because I'm always lean towards rooting for the underdog, whether I like Trump or hate him, I hope he can pull that off for our country's sake.
Yeah. What do you think the odds are? Certainly, we know how California generally votes. It's a dark blue state. So we know what's going to happen there. But so this may come down to just Pennsylvania or Wisconsin or, Georgia. What is you say you talk to a lot of people, granted it's your circle, but these are people with whom you've disagreed before and now you're finding some common ground.
Right.
What are your hunches about what could happen?
What I think would happen if it wasn't for the mail-ins and Trump would win this thing by a landslide. There would be no question. It would be over. I think people are tired. They're fed up. I think a lot of people are, like me, disgruntled with how the Democratic Party has exploded. People of color. fear mongered, gaslit. Oh, Project 2025. Ooh, all these little scare tactics.
I know.
And it's already been debunked, but they can't let it go. They even admitted that they were misleading voters, but they're continuing to use it because it sticks. So I think because of that, if it wasn't for the mail-ins, it would be a shoo-in. So I'm concerned about the mail-ins, and I'm also concerned about 15 million people who were flown in here or brought in here or allowed to dance across the border by the vice president, who was the border czar, no matter what people say.
Correct.
And I believe as an incentive for that, that's a possibility that many of those individuals could end up trying to sway the election, and it would be a nightmare. But if things are on the up and up for the most part, I believe that Trump should win this pretty handily. Unless he kicks a 3-year-old baby down the stairs between now and November. That's what I feel.
Might get away with a 12-year-old, but not a 3-year-old.
Not a 3-year-old.
Oh, my goodness. So, honest question. Are you feeling overwhelmed by the increasing cost of health insurance? Have you had enough of not having control over your healthcare dollars? Introducing Share Right, healthcare done the right way. At Share Right, you're not just a number. You're part of a caring community. And forget about paying excessive premiums. With Share Right, you stand to save 30 to 50% compared to health insurance. Think about what you could do with all those savings. But it's more than just savings. Share Right ensures you have access to the care you deserve precisely when you need it, from routine checkups to unexpected emergencies. With Share Right, your healthcare is their top priority. Empower yourself today by taking control of your healthcare costs. Visit shareright.org/Tafoya, Tafoya. It's right there on your screen to learn more and see how much you can save. Share Right, so SHARE and then RIGHT, all one word, .org/Tafoya. That's shareright.org/TAFOYA for healthcare done the right way.
Pay attention to what Kamala Harris said. Notice how she's flip-flopping and floundering. We know all politicians flip-flop from time to time, but she is a fish out of water. That's how bad she is flip-flopping right now. And notice what she said when questioned about her changing her positions all of a sudden. She says, but my values haven't changed. What that is code from progressives that means wink, wink. Yeah, I'm not going to really change anything. I'm just saying what I need to say to get elected. But wink, wink, I'm not changing my values. Once I get it, I'm going to go back to the same destructive policies that I was engaged in before. This was the same woman who said Bidenomics was working, right? She said Joe was doing a good job, right? She's going to go right back to that. You guys know it. She's going to be a younger, more dangerous version of Joe Biden. And you guys have to recognize that the reason I'm supporting the former president is that we cannot do 4 more years of this. I'm doing that as a black man because I love you, because I care about you. And I don't want to see another Democrat get elected from manipulating you, scaring you, pumping you up, and only looking at you every 4 years and then completely turning her back on you. And now she's not even waiting for the election to turn her back on you. They're already doing it. Democrats across the country right now, those migrants that Biden flew in and just let dance across the border, everything that you've been asking for and begging for, listen up, Chicago, listen up, New York City, listen up, California, everything that we have been asking the government for to help our brothers and sisters who are struggling, who've been struggling, just like that, they're giving it to people who weren't even born here.
You mentioned that Democrats seem to come around every 2 to 4 years and whisper in everyone's ears like reparations, and we do more for the Black community. And I heard someone recently say that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were the most effective or had the most impact on the Black community of any president in U.S. history. And I was thinking, do they know who Abraham Lincoln was? But I don't know how they can get away with saying these things and expecting us to believe them. But it's every 2 to 4 years. Someone like you, there are lots of people like you right now coming out and saying, how much more are you going to let yourself be fooled by this rhetoric? So Are we at a tipping point yet?
I think we're finally at a tipping point where many, not all, still I believe the majority of African Americans, the Democratic Party has such a strong hold on them for so long that it's going to be really hard to break that spell that's over them. But there are slowly but surely more African Americans waking up to 60 years of every 4 years, the Democratic Party completely ignoring you or making promises to you. And then once you get them in, they forget all about you and go court another group. And the reason why is they don't respect you. But they know how to keep you. All they have to do is bring up racism, bring up Black trauma. All they have to do is find some odious, ominous, Republican figure to say, "Ooh, look, this guy's a racist," or "Look at Project 2025." Notice they don't explain to you what Project 2025 is. They say, "Hey, go look at it. Just go look it up." And they've already used social media to kind of skew it to scare people. That's all they have. But when we look back over 60 years, what have we gained from them? We still have failing schools that are still nothing but preschool to prison pipelines, horrible places. And unfortunately, people of color can't get their kids out of those schools because the teachers union, they don't care about Black kids. They care about keeping Black kids in a state of mediocrity. Crime everywhere you go. Blue cities. Why are we only seeing crime in blue cities? Because they've taken a hands-off approach to crime. They've bought into the whole social justice theory that we need to change the criminal justice system. And now more people are being affected by crime, people of color, than any other time that I can remember since the 90s. So every single thing. And then election year, when we already start to sour on the policies and how they're affecting us, they know just what to say. They bring up Mike Brown. They bring up George Floyd. They bring up the assassination of our civil rights leaders. They bring out Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson. And now they have these very, very articulate, educated puppets who are now going out to really try to keep Black folks in the fold. And it works, unfortunately. But I think right now people are struggling so badly. I know Black-owned businesses, small businesses who are struggling so badly right now that they get it now. They get it now that another 4 years of this they cannot stand. Poor people, women on welfare just trying to feed their families. It's not enough when the price of eggs and milk and everything's gone up, where you have to choose between putting gas in your car and feeding your family. And you can't buy a house. My God. And I'm sorry for ranting, but I'm so passionate about this right now.
I hear you.
You're hearing right now people in Chicago and New York who Democrats have been promising them things. Oh, we'll get to it. We'll get to it. We got you. And then all of a sudden, they're just letting folks across the border and giving everything they promised you to people just like that who weren't even born here. Even in California, they're talking about giving
that home loan, right?
Loans.
Yes,
that's crazy. When you have good Black families, Hispanic families who could use the same thing, and you're just completely looking, and they have to jump through hoops to get a house.
Exactly.
I'm sorry. Enough is enough. It should be clear to you. Yeah. It should be.
You said no. Don't apologize at all. You said somewhere in there. You said they don't respect you. Politicians don't respect really any of us, right? They're in it for some power, and I think the sooner that voters understand the government isn't God, right? Government doesn't bless them with things. And as quickly as government can give you something, it can take it away. And, why be dependent on this group of people? And they are elites. Not all of them, but the majority of them are elites. They've been in office a long time. Nancy Pelosi types, they like the power. They like to tell you that they know better than you how to run your life. And they convince you somehow that because they sit in this office, they sit in this chair in Congress, that they are in fact somehow better qualified. They are not. People are qualified to lead their own lives if they'll just take the agency to do so and not rely on government. What is it going to take for that message to get across?
It's going to be hard because it's been 60 years of indoctrination. And when you've been indoctrinated to believe something for so long, it's very, very, very hard to let it go. And I'm not the person that's saying the Republican Party is much better. But what I am saying is I believe the core of the Republican platform can create an environment where you can lift yourself up. Because I'm sorry, folks, reparations isn't coming. It is not coming. They're just dangling in front of you. Look what Gavin Newsom did in California. Oh, we're going to create a task force. And what did that task force produce? Oh, I'm not going to do that right now. But guess what? home loans for for migrants,
Yeah, yeah,
and now you got a lot of people upset. But no, I'm not saying Republicans are the panacea for all of our problems either.
right.
But I believe, well, my father, for example, my father was most successful in his business. He was a general contractor and real estate agent in the 1980s when who was in power? Reagan. Because of deregulation, tax cuts, he was able to succeed. Where Bill Clinton comes along and he started out good, but he sold us down the river with NAFTA. And I know Bill Clinton was like, oh, wait till I leave office. And then guess where the jobs went? They took them to other countries and you had hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people out of work. So, and I hate to say it like this, but everything the Democratic Party touches goes to crap. And it hurts us in the long run, and we don't see the flowers for the trees because they want to hijack us emotionally. Once you emotionalize somebody, you completely destroy their ability to ration it. And I'd say it's not that African Americans and people of color aren't intelligent. They're some of the most intelligent people in the world. But because they've been exploited for so long and let down and disappointed, they're easily manipulated. And people know just what to say to get us back. And I'm praying to God that we wake up and we just see other options, not necessarily the Republican Party, but just open your eyes to other options. I would love to see it because I think if that happens one day, the Democratic Party would actually get their heads on straight. But right now, I cannot support the Democratic Party in its current form.
What would it take, do you think, for this ticket, which RFK has now just endorsed, RFK Jr., the Trump-Vance ticket can do to open the eyes or convince or close the deal on this for people of color all over this country?
Well, I've said all along that the Republican Party right now is missing a huge opportunity to go into communities of color and talk to people directly and stop being afraid of getting yelled at, stop
Yeah.
being afraid of being shot at. One of the persons that really showed the way was Vivek Ramaswamy.
Yes.
He went to these communities and had conversations. Could you imagine if the Republican Party did this? You remember when Donald Trump said, what do you have to lose? And they made it sound like the racist thing in the world, most racist thing in the world.
Yeah.
That was a fair question.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
Donald Trump and his camp can continue to do that and go to these inner cities, don't worry about getting booed. I believe there are people there that will respect the fact that he came. If you remember the National Association of Black Journalists, that was no doubt a train wreck. But you know what I found out? When I talked to people in my circles, they respected him for coming. They respected him for coming.
Yeah.
If you just show up,
Yes.
people will give you an ear. And I think Republicans are missing a huge opportunity here if they don't do this right now.
Byron Donalds of Florida has done a few of those cigars, cognac, and congressman. I did one with him in Philadelphia. It was very successful. I'm with him. I'm with you on this. Just go everywhere. There's nothing to fear. And
there doesn't, there doesn't have to be there doesn't have to be cameras around.
Right.
Don't
right.
Just go to parks, go to wherever where you see people of color and say, hey, I'm Donald Trump. Let's talk about this. And we spread things faster than the internet. If all they say is, hey, Donald Trump came to Central Park today. What? He talked to us about this. They will spread that like wildfire. Wow, he really came to talk to us? Because remember, Joe Biden said, I can't come to your communities because they're too dangerous. But you created that.
Lord. Yeah.
He created that. So, that's what the Republican Party, this is a huge window. And if they miss it, that's on them.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree more. I hope they don't whiff on this. Last thing I want to ask you is, you think you and I agree that this is the most divisive time we've seen in this country since you and I have been alive. And so amidst all of this, amidst all the chaos and the rage and the anger and the poverty and all of it, what gives you hope, Deon?
What gives me hope? Well, I'm a man of faith, and I hope it's not a bad thing to talk about here.
Never.
Evil only prospers when good men are silent. And I'm finally starting to see a lot of good men waking up and starting to speak up. What's giving me hope is hearing people from the African-American community and people in my neighborhood, which is a multicultural neighborhood, sitting down with me and saying, you know what, we've been played. Now that I'm seeing people wake up, that's giving me hope. We just, as Americans, need to be united and fight against our voices potentially being taken away through the vice president and the current president, literally through the cover of darkness, flying people in, breaking our borders on purpose to take away our vote, our voice. And if we can unite around that and start to push back a little bit, I think we can slowly swing the pendulum back. And that's my thought on that. We have to get rid of, critical race theory in every facet because it's more divisive. You would think with everything they were putting in place that we would be more united, but that's not what it was really designed for.
No,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
It was another way to divide us. And I want to ask you this. I said that was the last question, but you mentioned this, and you are a police officer. I was on a podcast where they told me, well, Michele, you do know that the police were originally formed just to chase runaway slaves. And
That's
I said,
absolutely false.
Yeah. And I said to them, really, do you talk to black police officers like this too? And they said, well, they just have to keep their jobs.
No, that's absolutely false. Quick history lesson. Law enforcement started in 1638 in the colonies, and they were watchmen. They were watching over property and things like that. Then it became a day and a night watch. As actual policing spread it to the West Coast, the first form of policing towards the West Coast as it expanded was the U.S. Marshals and the sheriffs. Slave patrols began in 1704 in South Carolina. Okay. And yes, it spread throughout the South. Yes, they were allowed to go across state line and capture slaves and runaway slaves, but they weren't police officers. They didn't solve crimes. They didn't help anybody. Their job was to capture, torture, and maim slaves in the most twisted way to keep slaves under control. Now, that's 1704. Now, California, my agency started in 1869. There were no slaves in California. That didn't exist then. And we based our strategy off of what was happening on the East Coast until it evolved into what it is now. So there's no direct connection to law enforcement other than the fact that, of course, as slavery ended and racist attitudes still existed in this country, yes, former slave catchers went on to be firefighters, cops, and everything else. But that was America back then. But we have to acknowledge, if we have rationale and critical thinking skills, we have to acknowledge that America has evolved. It has evolved. And my department is not what it was in 1990. It's not what it was in 1890. It's very evolved. If you go to a roll call with my division, you will see every color of the rainbow. Hardworking, blue-collar men and women who just want to make a difference. That is a lie. That is not true.
I'm so glad you just articulated that so well. Thank you. And you have given me hope today. He is Officer Deon Joseph. You can find him. We've been showing you his Twitter handle, his webpage. He's got a book. You can find that at his webpage. What a breath of fresh air you are. And thank you so much for joining us.
And thank you for having me. You take care.
Like him, folks, remember to be brave and do good. And we will see you next time.
You know, if the former president can pull a rabbit out of the hat and win this election, I think it'll be considered the greatest comeback in American history. I'm trying to think of some of the biggest events in American history, and it's got to be number one or number two, okay? And here's why. They have thrown everything and the kitchen sink and a bullet at this man to try to stop him from winning back the White House. They have come up with 2 impeachments. They failed. They've tried to jail this man. They weaponized the justice system against him. The FBI was against him. The DOJ was against him. The law enforcement administratives were against him in New York, in Georgia. They have tried to fleece this man of his finances through civil lawsuits. They have even tried to take a vote away from the American people by literally, in pure Maduro-style fashion, taking his name off the ballot. In a few states. They literally thought they had the right to take a choice away from the American public. They have done everything to this man and spoke in such hateful terms and rhetoric towards the man, with the help of the journalists, with the help of some big tech, some podcasters, and everything else, and high-profile celebrities. And they created such hateful rhetoric that it fell on the heart of a very disturbed young man who actually tried to kill him and take his life. This man has been through a lot. And it's a cautionary tale that if it could happen to him, because he's going against the grain, because he's exposing the hustle that Democrats and Republicans have been playing with us for generations, if it could happen to him, it could happen to me. It could happen to you. And that's another reason why I have to support the former president. I have to vote for him, whether I like him or not, whether I'm a fan of him or not. I believe in freedom, and I believe the president is about freedom, keeping our nation free thought. I never saw the former president weaponize the justice system against his opponents. He should have. I never saw the former president try to silence journalists. I always saw him standing tall, taking tough questions, hostile reporters like Jim Acosta and others, just going in on him, and he stood tall, and he didn't run like a coward. He didn't go into a basement. He stood there, and he took it like a man. That's the kind of leader I want. That's the kind of person I want leading the country. Regardless of his flaws, I know he has many. I'm sure Kamala has many flaws too. You're just covering for her right now. Biden has a whole lot of flaws. You guys are just covering for her. See, that's what they do. 89% of the media coverage against Donald Trump, 89% of it is negative. And even if he does something positive, they find a way to poo-poo on it. But then if somebody else takes his same idea and tries to use it, all of a sudden they get praised for it. The bias is so strong. They literally tried to destroy this man, fleece him of his finances, take him off of ballots, and take away our choices. Guys, if he can win this, it'll be the greatest comeback in American history, and I'm all for it, because if they can do it to him, they can do it to me. They can do it to you. And it's important that we do everything that we can to maintain our freedom of speech, our freedom of thought, our freedom of expression, to allow discourse, that doesn't get you canceled. I look at what's happening in the UK, I look at what's happening in Canada, I look at what's happening in France right now, and it's terrifying. These are countries that were once considered almost as free as America, free speech, and now you see, as you see progressivism taking over Western-minded countries like a cancer, you're seeing it become more fascist, and you're seeing people getting jailed for just expressing factual opinions or quoting Bible verses. You're seeing that happen in the UK of all places, in France, in Canada. I don't want that to happen here. I don't want that to happen here. And I believe that Kamala Harris, once installed, that will be the beginning of that. I don't want to see that happen to America. I honestly believe that in my whole heart. So I feel like voting for the former president, no matter how I feel about his persona, will stave off fascism for about 4 years in this country. I do believe that. And it will be the greatest comeback in American history. And, we need it. We need him, because once again, if it can happen to him, it can happen to you and me.